Our next guest is named in the Mueller report, served time due to the investigation, of course, and the media even quickly latched on to him as evidence, they called it evidence, of collusion.
In many ways, he set off this investigation, and the fact that he then went on and lied to investigators about his contact with the professor.
Papadopoulos received that relatively light sentence from the judge.
I just want to keep saying it, 14 days. He could have gotten up to 6 months.
How is it not collusion when George Papadopoulos is in contact with various people who are promising dirt on Hillary Clinton?
I just want to be clear that, like, this entire investigation gets started because Papadopoulos drunkenly runs his mouth to an Australian diplomat.
Really? So how does George Papadopoulos feel now that the report is out and confirms the probe found no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion and mentions him prominently, actually an igniter of the whole thing, perhaps? George Papadopoulos is also the author of a book that goes into detail about this from his perspective, Deep State Target, how he got caught up in the crosshairs of the plot to bring down President Trump. George, do you think you were treated fairly by this, by the Mueller report?
Look, thanks a lot for having me. Look, I was actually really impressed and, quite frankly, shocked that Bob Mueller told the truth about why I was illicitly targeted, and it really had nothing to do with Russia. It actually had to do with my ties to Israel, which he makes it very clear in the memo. So now this is why this is really important, because if I was targeted for my ties to Israel, and I had all these various spies approaching me while I was just joining the campaign and they were discussing Israel with me, I think that's very disturbing, and it probably is going to reveal, quite frankly, how this entire investigation started, because I likely had this target on me immediately upon joining the campaign. So that's the first thing. And secondly, this artificial date of how the investigation started on July 31st, I think has been completely debunked now, and a lot of these conspiracy
what do you mean?
Theorists out there, like, what was that?
What do you mean?
No, so I'm saying that. So the whole story was that Alexander Downer and I had been discussing this, this off-the-cuff statement about hacked emails or something along that line in a bar in London. Now, with the new evidence we have that I was targeted and I was under surveillance upon joining the Trump campaign for my ties to Israel, it suggests to me that Alexander Downer was clearly also spying on me. And, according to my own testimony to Congress, this is something that, a lot of people should look into. I think people like Mark Meadows and others think that there are transcripts of this meeting. And, I think it's going to really upend this old narrative.
Well,
but besides that,
we don't know whether Downer was spying on you. You're obviously raising that question. The president wants to investigate the investigator, so presumably we will finally one day get to the bottom of that. I want to directly ask you, we played that clip. What's your message this morning to Jim Acosta, other journalists who alleged that your case proved that there was collusion with Russia, when now the special counsel is saying after 22 months there was no collusion? What's your message to Acosta and others?
Well, of course there was no collusion, and of course I wasn't colluding because I've never met a Russian official in my entire life, let alone on the campaign or the transition team. And, quite comically, the guy that's at the epicenter of this fake collusion story, Joseph Mifsud, he was just outed yesterday by the Italians, and he's been living next to the U.S. Embassy for the last year.
Wait, I thought that was a Russian contact. I thought that was, they say he was the Russian contact.
Well, I don't know how these Russian contacts like Joseph Mifsud are training CIA and FBI and MI6 figures in Rome like this guy currently is doing. But, I think this guy's going to start talking, and possibly there's already been a deal made between the Italians and our country to have him testify and actually reveal what he was really up to. Because, quite frankly, I don't think anybody's buying that this guy was some sort of Russian intermediary or Russian spy trying to collude with me. And, quite frankly, even people like Rudy Giuliani are going public and stating that he was probably part of some sort of setup. Now, that's why my case is actually so fascinating, why it's probably going to be very important moving forward. One, like I stated, because there was obviously this targeting of me for my ties to Israel, which attracted all of these spies, and two, who was running these guys at me, and where did it come from? Was it the Obama administration? Was it the head of the UK government? We'll have to find out.
Yeah, there's a lot more we're going to learn in the days ahead. George Papadopoulos, we appreciate you coming in with your reaction.
Thanks a lot.